Welcome to Echoes of Faith, where ancient truth speaks into your today. Here, scripture, theology, and the languages of the Bible come alive to build your faith, steady your heart, and draw you closer to God. Today's episode is titled, Moses Flees to Midian, Faith That Grows in Obscurity. Our scriptural reading is taken from Exodus 2:11-25, Acts 7:23-30. Moses leaves Egypt not as a deliverer, but as a fugitive. One impulsive act collapses 40 years of preparation and forces him into exile. In this episode, we explore Moses' flight to Midian and the long, silent years that follow. Through the original Hebrew text, Aramaic tradition, and Greek witness, we uncover how God uses obscurity to reshape ambition, how failure becomes formation, and why divine calling often matures far from public platforms. This episode speaks to anyone whose life took an unexpected turn, anyone who feels delayed, sidelined, or forgotten, and anyone learning that God does his deepest work away from applause. We left Moses as a baby in a basket. We pick him up 40 years later. Acts 7 tells us he was mighty in words and deeds. He was a prince of Egypt. He had the best education. He had power. He had status, and he had a secret. He knew he was Hebrew. There is a dangerous moment in the life of every leader. It is the moment when you know your calling, but you have not yet learned God's timing. Moses knew he was called to deliver, but he thought he could do it with his own hand. He thought he could do it with an Egyptian sword. Today, we watch the collapse of Moses the prince, and we watch the slow, painful birth of Moses the shepherd. If you have ever tried to do the right thing the wrong way, or if you feel like you ruined your destiny with one mistake, this episode is for you. Exodus 2:11 opens, "Now it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens." The Hebrew word for looked is ra'ah. It implies deep emotional perception. He did not just see them. He felt the weight of the bricks on his own back. Then he sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. The text says, he looked this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The Hebrew verb for killed is nakah. It means to strike, to smite, to hit with fatal force. It is the same word used for the Egyptian beating the Hebrew. Moses answers violence with violence. Here is the theological problem. Moses tried to bring about God's justice using Pharaoh's methods. He used the weapons of the oppressor to free the oppressed. He buried the body in the sand. But you cannot build a kingdom on hidden sins. What is buried in the sand always eventually surfaces. The next day, he goes out again. He sees two Hebrew men fighting. He tries to intervene. "Why are you striking your companion?" And the man replies with a question that will haunt Moses for 40 years. "Who made you a prince and a judge over us?" This question pierces the core of Moses' identity. He thought he was the prince. He thought he was the judge. But his own people rejected him. Acts 7:25 gives us the Greek insight. For he supposed that his brethren would have understood that God would deliver them by his hand, but they did not understand. There is a gap between your internal calling and external recognition. Moses was called, yes, but he was not yet commissioned. Self-appointed leadership often leads to rejection. Moses realizes the thing is known. Pharaoh seeks to kill him, and the prince becomes the fugitive. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. The Hebrew verb is barach, to bolt, to run away in haste. He leaves the palaces of Memphis and Thebes. He crosses the Sinai Peninsula. He enters the land of Midian, modern-day Saudi Arabia, Jordan. This is a total collapse of status. He goes from sleeping on fine linen to sleeping on rocks. He goes from being son of Pharaoh's daughter to being a nobody in the desert. Psychologically, this is the deconstruction of the ego. God has to strip Moses of Egypt before he can clothe him with heaven. He has to strip him of his confidence in his own right hand, so he can eventually learn to trust in the staff of God. He sits down by a well. In biblical typology, The well is the place of destiny. 7 daughters of the priest of Midian come to water their flock. Shepherds come and drive them away. Moses stands up and helps them. Notice something important. Moses is a fugitive, but his instinct for justice is still alive. Even in his depression, even in his failure, he cannot stand by and watch the strong abuse the weak. This is the core of his character. God can work with this. He drives away the bullies. He waters the flock. He serves. The prince serves the shepherd girls. The humbling has begun. The girls go home to their father, Reuel, also called Jethro. Reuel means friend of God. They say, an Egyptian delivered us. Moses still looks like an Egyptian. He talks like an Egyptian, but he acts like a servant. Jethro invites him in. Call him, that he may eat bread. Moses is content to live with the man. He marries Zipporah. He has a son. He names him Gershom. The etymology is heartbreaking. Ger, stranger, plus sham, there. I have been a stranger in a foreign land. Moses names his son after his loneliness. He feels displaced. He feels like he doesn't belong anywhere. Not in Egypt, not with the Hebrews, and not really in Midian. He is a man without a country. But God often uses the displaced to lead his people to a new place. Now begins the long silence. Acts 7:30 says, and when 40 years had passed, 40 years, that is 14,600 days. What was Moses doing? He was keeping sheep. This is the school of the wilderness. Egyptians were taught that shepherds were an abomination. Genesis 46-34. For Moses to become a shepherd was a social demotion of the highest order. He had to unlearn his classism. He had to unlearn his arrogance. Shepherding taught him 3 things. 1. Patience. Sheep are stubborn and slow. You cannot force them. You have to lead them. 2. Solitude. He spent days alone with the wind and the rocks. He learned to be quiet. 3. Geography. He learned the terrain of the Sinai. He learned where the water was. God was giving him the map for the Exodus 40 years before the Exodus happened. The Aramaic Targums suggest that this season was about the emptying of Moses. He had to lose his reliance on the wisdom of Egypt. Intellect is useful, but it cannot part the Red Sea. Military strategy is useful, but it cannot bring manna from heaven. God had to bankrupt Moses of his human strength, so he would be forced to rely on divine power. This is why, when God finally calls him, Moses says, I cannot speak. The man who was mighty in words, Acts 7, became the man who was slow of speech, Exodus 4. He lost his confidence in his eloquence. And that is exactly when he was ready to speak for God. While Moses is in the desert, the camera shifts back to Egypt, Exodus 2:23. The king of Egypt died. Then the children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out. Their cry came up to God. Verse 24 contains 4 verbs of divine action. Number 1, God heard Shema, their groaning. 2, God remembered his covenant. 3, God looked Ra upon the children of Israel. 4, God acknowledged Yada them. The last verb, Yada, is simply God knew. It implies deep, intimate awareness. God knew their pain. God knew the timing was right. The people were ready. They were crying out. The leader was ready. He was humbled. The oppressor was ripe for judgment. We live in a world that worships the platform. We want to be seen. But Moses teaches us that the most important work happens in the dark. Obscurity is not a punishment. It is a kiln. It is where the clay is fired so it can hold the weight of the glory later. If Moses had led the rebellion at age 40, it would have been a disaster. It would have been a political coup, not a spiritual deliverance. He needed the desert to purge the violence out of him. He needed the silence to learn to hear the voice that sounds like a burning bush. You might be in Midian right now. You feel like you have been shelved. You made a mistake, and you think your ministry or your purpose is over. You feel like a stranger in a foreign land. Listen to me. Moses was 80 years old when his ministry started. Your failure was not fatal. It was formative. God has not forgotten you. He is watching you tend those few sheep in the wilderness. Be faithful with the sheep, because the bush is about to burn. The desert wind is blowing. Moses is leaning on his staff, watching the sheep graze near a mountain called Horeb. He thinks this is how his life ends. An old man in the sand. He has no idea that the mountain he is standing on will soon be shaking with the fire of God. He has no idea that the staff in his hand will soon split the sea. Faith waits in the obscurity. Faith trusts in the silence. Because when God breaks the silence, He changes the world. Thank you for joining me in the wilderness. Moses is ready. The ego is dead. The vessel is prepared. Next time, we approach the holy ground. Take off your sandals. Thank you for listening to Echoes of Faith. May the word you heard today strengthen your spirit, renew your hope, and deepen your walk with God. Until next time, keep your heart open and let faith speak.